About the chapter, the following extract is from Little Women, first published in 1868. This story of four sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy, their friend Laurie, their wise and loving parents of modest means, living in a suburb of a city on the east coast of America, has caught the imagination of generations of readers, young and old alike. This book, Little Women, is about four sisters and their friend. Each character is real and distinctive. We remain firmly with the sisters through all their struggles, conflicts, triumphs, and joys. It serves as a guiding light to us in all the phases of our lives. The extract affords us a tantalizing glimpse into the book and narrates the beginning of a lifelong friendship between Jo, the brightest and liveliest of the four sisters, and Laurie, their wealthy new neighbor. The March girls and Laurie become best buddies, and much more as the book progresses. Let us now begin with the chapter. One snowy afternoon, Jo came tramping through the hall in rubber boots, old sack, and hood, with a broom in one hand and a shovel in the other, and was going out for the exercise, with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. So Jo was one of the liveliest sisters of the four. So one snowy afternoon, it was snowing heavily, but she was not ready to sit at home. So she wore her boots. Sack is a jacket, a small jacket for children which is closed at the neck. The hood, a broom, and a shovel. Shovel is used for digging the ground. Meg advises Jo to stay at home near the fire to keep herself warm. But Jo answered that she can't sit still all day and was going out to find some adventure for herself. As told, Jo was very lively, so she was not ready to sit at home all day. So she was going out for some adventure. So she went out to dig paths in the snow with great energy. The March's house was a small, brown, shabby dwelling that lost its summer greenery. It was separated by a low hedge from Mr. Laurence's large stone mansion. The Marches, that is, the four sisters and her parents, had a a small living. They had modest means, and their home was very small and brown and shabby. Next to them was Mr. Laurence's large stone mansion, whereas Laurence's mansion was grand with every sort of comfort and luxury in it. So we see separate and opposite houses. Yet it seemed a lonely, lifeless sort of, for no children frolicked on the lawn, no motherly face ever smiled at the windows, and few people went in and out, except the old gentleman and his grandson. So the mansion next to them was very luxurious. Okay, it had everything in it, but it was lifeless, it was lonely. There were no children playing, no motherly face, and only few people came in and out. And there was one old gentleman and his grandson in the house. To Joe's lively fancy, the fine house of Laurence seemed a kind of enchanted palace, full of splendors and delights which no one enjoyed. So Jo always looked at the mansion, and she thought to herself that there is nobody to enjoy all these splendors and delights. She felt that the boy needed the company of young boys, but his grandfather didn't understand this and kept him shut in the house all day long. Once she had seen the boy peeping into the garden where Beth and Amy were snowballing, so she tried to make friends with him. So, seeing the mansion, she thought that the boy inside, he needs help, he needs friends, but his grandfather doesn't understand him. So she wanted to try to make friends with him. Because once she had seen that the boy was lonely and was peeping where Beth and Amy, Joe's sisters, were playing. She saw Laurie sitting near one of the windows on the second floor. Joe felt sorry for the poor lonely boy. She threw a snowball at the window, grabbing Laurie's attention. So she wanted to make friends with Laurie so that he has some company. At that time, she saw that he is sitting at a window. So, to get his attention, she threw a snowball at the window. Laurie admitted that he had been sick with a cold and he invited Joe to come over. When Laurie saw that Joe is trying to talk to him, they started talking. And while talking, Laurie admitted that he was sick for a few days, so he was not being seen by Joe. Laurie was in a flutter of excitement at the idea of having company and flew about to get ready, for as Mrs. March said, that he was a little gentleman. So Laurie invited Joe to come home so that they can play and have a chat. To honor the coming guest, he brushed his curly hair, put up a fresh color, and tried to tidy up the room. He was very excited to have company. Joe arrived soon after with an armful of offerings for Laurie, a plate of blancmange from Meg and kittens from Beth. Joe thought that going empty-handed was not good because she was going there for the first time. So she brought a sweet dish for him and kittens. In order to tidy the room, Joe brushed the hearth, straightened the mantelpiece, but the books and the bottles in the place, turned the sofa from the light and plumped up the pillows. Laurie begged her to talk to him and Joe told him about her family. Laurie described Beth as the rosy one, who stays at home a good deal and sometimes goes out with a little basket. So they began talking. And Laurie is now asking about her family. But he himself is giving the answers. That Beth is a rosy one and stays at home mostly. And sometimes she goes out with a little basket. Curious Laurie further continued asking about Meg and Amy. Because he is always alone. He wants to know other people. He wants to know about Joe and her sisters. He himself said that Meg is the pretty one and Amy is the curly haired one with a question mark. This shows that even though he is sitting at home alone, he keeps a watch on the playing sisters because they always keep playing. Joe was shocked that apart from being in the home shut the whole day, how it was possible for Laurie to know so much detail about her family. To which she asked him that how he found all this. Laurie revealed that he sometimes spied on the March family. Okay, this is not in a bad sense. Because he is alone, he wants to know about other people. He is happy to see the sisters playing. He is happy to see their parents play with them. But Joe saw that he only did it because he was alone. He had no parents, so he was now with his grandfather and always felt lonely. When Joe realized how lonely Laurie was, she felt sympathetic towards him. She tried to include him in the activities of her jolly family. She invited him over to her house and advised him to visit his other neighbors too and make friends. She wanted Laurie to open up and make friends because it was not good to be alone. So she told him that you can come to my home and you can play with us. You must also make other friends. You should visit your neighbors. She also told him kindly to stop being bashful. She was empathetic towards his condition. Joe did not go to school. She further added that she is a businessman and corrected her by the gender. Okay, she said, I'm a businessman. Then she says, no, I'm a businesswoman. Laurie had a wonderful library with plenty of books in it. He was very fond of reading. To be happy, only reading books were not enough for him. He needed friends, love, and a happy family. Only reading books and having plenty of them was not enough to be the reason for his happiness. Because he was alone all the time, he spent much of his time reading books. But to make oneself happy, only the books could not be the company. They need friends, family, so that they can feel loved. Laurie stepped out momentarily to see his doctor, and while he had gone, Mr. Laurence, that is Laurie's grandpa, came in and surprised Joe. Joe had been standing before Grandpa's portrait when the door opened behind her. Joe expressed her thoughts about Grandpa, that he had kind eyes, tremendous will, but he was not as handsome as her grandfather. So she was seeing a portrait and she did not know that Laurie's grandfather was standing behind her. She thought that Laurie was standing or she was just talking to herself. That he has kind eyes, but he is not handsome as my grandfather. She did not know that Laurie's grandpa was hearing her words. He then realized that it was Grandpa and not Laurie to whom she had addressed her Frank's comments. Grandpa thanked her, hearing her expression about him. She blushed and felt uncomfortable about what she had said about her grandpa. But Grandpa accepted her remarks and made her comfortable with soft words. Because she said that her grandpa was more handsome than Laurie's grandfather, and Laurie's grandfather heard everything of this. Joe started blushing and feeling uncomfortable. But Laurie's grandfather was really kind. He accepted her remarks and made her comfortable. He said that at least you are honest, okay? You gave honest remarks on me, so don't worry, I accept your remarks. He inquired about her presence with his grandson Laurie. She claimed that he needed to become friendlier with neighbors, so he would never remain alone. Grandpa accepted her thinking. Now, after the introduction, Grandpa asked Joe that why is she here? And to this, she replied that Laurie needs friends. He needs to become friendlier with the neighbors because he is always alone. Grandpa accepted this fact. Grandpa asked Joe the reason for her presence in the house, to which Joe said that she was just trying to be neighborly. Joe said that she felt that Laurie needs some cheering up, which would be possible only if he had young friends. Joe saw that Laurie has no company of any young friends of his age, so she was trying to be neighborly and trying to cheer him up. She suggested Grandpa that he must have young friends. She offered their help, gratefully reminding Grandpa of the wonderful Christmas present he had sent. To which Grandpa replied that all that was Laurie's action. Once on a Christmas, Grandpa had presented Joe and her sisters with some beautiful gifts. So she was helping Laurie for this great act of Grandpa. But Grandpa said that that action was not by me but by Laurie. That is, Laurie had told his grandfather to present Joe and her sisters. This shows that not only Joe thought about Laurie, Laurie also had interest in making friends with Joe and her sisters. Grandpa inquired regarding the Hummels, whom the March family was helping. Hummels was a family who was quite poor. The March family, that is Joe's family, was helping those. So Grandpa knew about everything and he asked about those people too. He then remembered Joe's grandfather, who had been his friend, and said he would drop in on her mother. Joe's grandfather and Laurie's grandfather both were friends, so he inquired about him too. He told Joe to continue her visits to Laurie and courteously accompanied her for tea. So in the end, Grandpa, okay, earlier maybe Joe thought that Grandpa was very strict and he did not allow Laurie to be friendly with anybody. But at the end we see Grandpa is so friendly with her and he asks her to visit Laurie and make friends with him. And they both courteously accompany each other for the tea. So a very beautiful story, and this is just the beginning of the friendship.